Hello everyone, it's Maha. Welcome back to my channel. So tonight's video was requested by one of my lovely subscribers who had asked me if I could share how I make my essential oil blends. So this is a very quick, informal video to share with you some basics on essential oil blending and how I blend my oils. And I'm gonna just go through a list of things very quickly. I plan to hopefully do a series on essential oils in the future, a longer series where I go into much more detail about the things I'm going to talk about in this video. And then I also want to do things like astrological aromatherapy, which is one of my passions. And that's where you blend oils that correspond to specific planets and signs in the zodiac, and that you can create your own signature blends that kind of correspond to your natal chart. And much more coming up in that series sometime in the future. And so for this video, I'm just going to go over these things very briefly. Keep that in mind, because for each thing I'm going to talk about, I can go on, and I could make a whole half-an-hour video on each of these topics. So this is very basic stuff. And the first is carrier oils. So you want to choose a carrier oil, which you're going to use to blend your essential oils into. And there are so many different kinds of carrier oils, and each of them have their own specific therapeutic qualities. The three oils that I stay away from when I'm making my essential oil blends. Now, this is not for magical purposes. This is essential oils where I actually want them to smell pleasant and to have a sort of an effect on the nervous system in a calming way, therapeutically, or just oils that I would do for meditation, oils I'd make for to use as perfume, those kinds of blends. I stay away from carrier oils that have a very strong odor, and the top three I stay away from are olive oil, sesame oil, and evening primrose oil. Now, I sometimes make an exception for sesame oil because sesame oil has a very warming quality to it, so it's a really great oil if you want to make therapeutic blends for muscle pain, for joint pain, stiffness, muscle stiffness. It's really warming, so that's a really great quality that sesame oil has. And sometimes I make that exception even though it does have a strong scent. I kind of use it sometimes. And my favorite oils to use for blending are jojoba, sunflower, and almond oil. And I like those three oils because they're light, so they spread really easily, they're great for massage, and they have a long shelf life. So that's important if you're making blends because you want to store them. Sometimes you want to store them for a long time. So these oils have a long shelf life, I think 1 or 2 years even, especially jojoba. And jojoba is, I would say if I had to pick one oil, it would be the carrier oil I would choose because it has an ability to absorb very quickly into the skin. And it's just a really great oil overall. So that would be my number one choice. So once you have the oil, the next thing I'll talk about is concentration. So it is generally recommended that you use 3 drops of essential oils in 10 milliliters. So that's a 3% concentration. You can go lower than that if you have sensitive skin. For example, I do, and I always start with 1%. And the thing is that you can always start lower because you can always go higher. So it's always a good idea to start maybe with 1% and then just see how it feels, how it smells, what you think about it, and always make sure you test it on your skin because essential oils can have, sometimes they can irritate the skin depending on the oil, or you might have a reaction to a certain oil. So always make sure that you test it on a part of your body so that you're not going to react to it badly once you make the blend. So as a general guideline, we have the 3 notes, the top, middle, and base note for blending when we're making the actual blend. So the base note, no, let's start with the top note. So the top note is the one you smell first. So it's the first one that you smell, but it's the quickest one to dissipate and go away. And then the base note is the one that lingers the longest, and it's a heavier scent. And then the middle note is sort of in between. So in these three notes, the category, if we think of plant parts, is that basically you can think of the base note as the root part of the plant, or the bark, so bark of a tree, for example. And then the middle note would be the flowering part of the plant, or the leaves in most cases. And then the top note would be citrusy scents, citrus oils. So for example, lemon, grapefruit, orange, those will be your citrusy scents that evaporate fastest into the air, but are the first ones that you take in. And the number of different essential oils that you want to stick to, this is sort of like the magical number, is 5. More than 5 essential oils in a blend, to me, is a bit overwhelming, a bit too much, and it can even sometimes give me a headache. So I stick with 5, and 5 is the number that's the synergistic blend number. So synergy is basically a term used in aromatherapy, where when essential oils are blended together, so when more than one is blended together, its therapeutic qualities are enhanced. So it's better, for example, to use lavender with rosemary than lavender alone, because the blend of these two oils together make it more therapeutic and bring out the qualities of these oils even more. And the synergistic number is number 5, so that's sort of the magical number, but you can start with less. 3 is a good place to start with, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself too quickly when you're first learning how to blend. I sometimes like to even just stick with 3. So with this base, middle, and top note, what I usually do is I pick one base. I don't want to pick more than one base oil, because it is, like I said, the heavier scent, so then it becomes too strong for me. So I'll pick one base note, one top note, and then I'll go with 1, 2, or 3 middle notes. Doesn't really matter how many. If it's 1, 2, or 3, you just experiment and see what you like. You know, can you go over 6? Yes, of course, you can do whatever you want. But for me, I find that when I use more than 5, I just don't, it's too much for me. So I like this number, and I usually stick to the number 5 or 3, like I said. So before you decide, when you do your blend, before you decide whether you like the scent or not, give it 48 hours, because it takes 2 days for the oils, for the essential oil molecules to really bind with each other and fuse with the carrier oil and give the true authentic smell or scent of the oil blend that you've created. So if you wait the 2 days, then you can judge whether you want to add more or do whatever else you want to do with it. So if you just use 3 essential oils and then later you wanted to increase it to 5 different oils, you could just wait a couple of days and see if you like the smell, and if you wanted to add more or add some carrier oil to lighten it down a little bit. That's the time that you need to wait. So don't judge it too quickly, which is basically what I'm saying. So now I want to just talk about how I blend my oils. So this is a 1 ounce bottle here, and what I like to do sometimes, by the way, is that, this is so nice, benzoin. I like to make blends in separate jars of just one scent. So this is benzoin, and I have, for example, myrrh, I have rose, I have amber, I have different ones, I have lavender. And then what I might do is, because I already have this, I take a little bit of each, or I might decide, for example, I want to make my favorite meditation oil, which is myrrh, sandalwood, and rose. Yeah, I think that's it. sandalwood, rose, and myrrh. I think that's it. So I have already pre-blended those, and then I just add a little bit in like a 30 milliliter jar. I'll just put 1/3 of each, and then I'll blend it together. Now, the way you blend it, the technique for the blending, is that you want to roll it. So you don't shake it, you roll it. So you can roll it in your hand or roll it on your lap. That's how the essential oils get into the carrier oil in an even fashion. Now, I should say that the way I mix the oils is what I first do. If I'm just using the essential oils straight from the bottle and putting the drops in here, I'll do 1/3 of the carrier oil, and then I'll add the essential oils in, and then I'll roll it. And after a while, maybe about a minute of rolling, then I'll add more carrier oil into the jar and then just fill it up as high as I want, and then I'll roll again. So you see, you first have to put some carrier oil, put the drops of essential oils, blend it, and then add more carrier oil, and then blend it. That's how I do it. That's the way I found that is the best way for me to really get a nice blend. And if you let that sit for a couple of days, then you can tell whether or not you like the scent and if you want to change it or not. So I think that's all I'm gonna say for now. This is a very short video. I have done other videos on essential oils. I have a playlist created for them, and like I said, I will make more in the future. The other thing is, don't hesitate to experiment and just to play around and just let your intuition guide you. Things don't always have to be by the book. I'm the kind of person that I like doing things more intuitively anyway. I don't follow a structured guideline. I think it's a really good idea too when you're first starting out, and it works for some people. For me, I just like to go intuitively, and sometimes I, by accident, will discover a certain oil blending with another oil in a really beautiful way, and then I'll read about it later and actually find that that was the recommended oil to be that would blend well together with. So, for example, sometimes I keep, when I run out of the essential oil, I keep the bottle, so the empty bottle, and then I might just take one of my pre-blended oils and then pour it in there. And I did that last week with myrrh. I had a pre-blended myrrh, which I poured into a sweet marjoram, essential 5 milliliter essential oil bottle that was finished, and that was amazing. I was so excited because I just discovered this accidental blend that I never thought would really go well together. So I'm saying that you give yourself the permission to play around, to follow your intuition, just to experiment with the oils and see where they take you. Get familiar with them. You might even just want to start with using one essential oil and just making a blend and working with that and see how that sits on you, how you feel about it. And then as you become more and more familiar with the different oils, then you could decide to blend more and go into it more, because it can get a bit overwhelming when you're first starting out, because there's so many different types of essential oils out there, and you know that when you smell too many oils at the same time, then you get confused. You might even get a headache. You don't really know what, your brain gets confused with all the different scents. So it's a good idea to give yourself time to just experiment, to see what you feel about the different scents. And I would recommend, although I haven't really done this myself, I'm very bad at this, I would recommend to keep a journal. Some kind of journal where you record the drops that you've used in a blend, what you used, if you liked it, and then so you can remember it, and then you can go back to it, change it. I know that I always want to do this, but I still haven't done it. I kind of just do things more intuitively, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But my biggest lesson that I've learned in essential oil blending has been to start with the lowest concentration and then add more if you want to, rather than other way around. So this was a very informal video. I just wanted to give you some tips and some ideas and maybe inspire you to play around and experiment and to keep an eye out for my coming series on essential oils. I'm not really sure exactly when that's going to be, but I would like to do that very soon. Not very soon, but soon-ish, because I have other videos I want to do coming up, but that's definitely on my list of to-do series. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and as always, I'm sending you lots of love and many blessings. Until the next video, take care. Bye.